People will compensate calories during the week for the weekend. So they're like, I'm going out on the weekend, so I'm gonna not eat 200 or 300 calories during the week. I'll explain why I don't like this strategy.
That eating is cheating.
Am I making this decision based off what another person wants, or am I making it off what I want?
But it doesn't mean that you also always have to be really mindful with your drink and that you can never go out and let loose. Like I like to use this tiered approach, which basically has 3 tiers.
Especially for females, I think when they're dieting and they're going out at the weekend, they almost go out already feeling guilty.
There's different strategies and hacks that I'm going to go through at the end. And there's also, Eve has her science-based hangover cure.
Like I realised that when I was drinking at the weekend, even though I was going out for a couple of drinks, but there was nothing really to it, and it was just for the sake of going out, and I was like, I'm not even having the fun here.
Hey there, and welcome to the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you're passionate about staying fit, healthy, and mentally sharp, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Matt Cooney, and each week we dive into the latest trends, expert insights, and actionable tips to help you take your fitness, nutrition, and mental well-being to the next level. Ready to level up your health and fitness? Let's jump in and get started.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Future Fitness Lifestyle. Today is a different day because it's the first time there's only 4 of us. So we are a man down, or a woman down, actually, I should say. Sharon, obviously, if you're listening, can't see. Sharon is not with us today. She is dealing with a sick child. So, yeah, you'll have to put up with just me, Eve, Tommy, and Ro today. How are we all feeling?
Good. I feel like it's the same every week.
Scared?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
I've got one more assignment to do, and it's due tomorrow. And once I've handed that in, I feel like Christmas is about to begin.
Tommy, I thought you were pointing at your tash there and saying like one more assignment, as in you have to get rid of your Movember. It is December
That's
now.
my second assignment.
Oh, yeah, it's Movember's over and you're still wearing the moustache.
Still wearing it, Eve. I just take it off.
Right, today we are going to get into alcohol again. The last time, it was actually like 2 weeks ago, which it feels weird because the last podcast was basically our live event, which again was also another weird experience to do a podcast looking at people in front of it. It's funny how everyone will experience this, you know, when you like have done like for people talking, it's the first time they ever get a camera put in front of their face and like everything just goes blank. You're like, what happened to my voice, my brain? That kind of happens when we were doing, because it was a Q&A, but you're looking out at a crowd of people instead of like looking at you. So it was a different experience. How did you find it, Tommy?
I honestly wasn't expecting that. Like you just explained was what kind of happened to me. Like I just thought, oh, this would be cool, which of course it was. But when we were sitting down and literally, I think it was Jeff was like, okay, the camera's rolling. I was like, oh my God, there's so many people in the room looking at us. I was like, you just felt obviously it felt like pressure. It wasn't pressure, but it felt like that just because I suppose it was so quiet in the room, you know. And I think that's when you were kind of like saying to the guys, to the crowd, make some noise.
It's kind of like going to the gym. No, going to a new gym for the first time. It's like you've been to the gym even for years, but when you go to a new gym, there's always that little bit of like nerves, weirdness. Where is everything? Do I look weird? Even if like you're like me, I've been to the gym I work in a gym. You still get that on new gyms, so it's kind of that similar feeling, you know. Today, let's get into alcohol. So the last episode we talked all about basically the effects of alcohol, and we went through a lot of stuff. But what we didn't cover was kind of like strategies to use, because we basically all had summarized that drinking less is better, but most of us are going to want to drink and want to socialize. It is going to be part of our lives. So what I want to look at is strategies. How can we look at alcohol consumption? And especially right now for us recording, it's December coming into Christmas. There's going to be a lot more socializing alcohol consumption. And it's a good time to kind of chat through some strategies and things that we use personally to, I suppose, help manage this time of year. And essentially what you want to do is be able to consume alcohol in a way where it actually complements your life and it doesn't hold you back from achieving the goals you want. First thing I think we should look at is the choice of drinks. I think it's one of the easiest kind of strategies you can use is going for a lower calorie option. And roll, Tommy, roll what? You're no, you're more of a whiskey person, aren't you?
Yeah, or
But you are
tequila
spirits.
soda.
Spirits and
Tequila
that.
soda.
Yeah, tequila soda is a good diet, lower calorie option.
Yeah. And I think mixers, if you can do as little sugar as possible, because I feel like the hangover from the sugar is just as bad as the hangover from the alcohol. So that's why I tend to always mix with either sparkling water or soda water or tonic.
Eve,
Yeah,
Eve's the same. You're a diet
Yeah, skinny
mixer.
bitch. Was it the vodka and
that's what
soda?
Russian calls it, a skinny bitch, a vodka and soda. But yeah, it's not the nicest tasting drink, but honestly, it's the best for the next day because, like for me, if I'm drinking a vodka soda, like I'm pretty much drinking so much water that it's keeping me hydrated as well, and you just feel so much better the next day if you can stick to one drink for the whole night, and if you can stick to a clear spirit and sparkling water or tonic water, you're just going to feel hydrated and you're going to feel so much better because most of the hangover is actually like dehydration.
Yeah. If you were drinking like 10, yeah, was it before you had like 10 vodkas with sparkling water, but it was like 500 mils of sparkling water each time. So it was like 5 liters of water while you're out. It's like
Bubbly water
literally zero
too.
hangover.
Super hydration. The cancels out the vodkas.
But that's
That's
that's when it comes to calories as well. As we know, like as I said in the last episode, and gaining weight or gaining body fat is going to come down to your total consumption of calories. Alcohol has calories, but not all alcohol is the same. And like we said, like the better options are going to be a clear spirit, something like a gin or a vodka with a diet mixer or soda. What else did you say? Tonic and
Gin tonic. Yeah.
probably a light beer. This really does make a huge difference because if you take 10 drinks, if you have 10 cocktails, let's say pina coladas, you're definitely gonna be sick the next day. But that's probably like 400 calories a pop, 4,000 calories. You have 10 vodka and sodas, it's like 70 calories or something like that. So 700, let's say 1,000 calories. That's like 1,000 versus 4,000 calories is a big difference in your drink of choice. What's that, 75% or 20?
Yeah.
Yeah, 75%
A
difference.
quarter.
It's a lot. And the same with pints. If you put that, pints would be less, but you're still talking like 2,500 calories versus 1,000 for your gin or vodka, really. So
and
that's
as
the
Eve
first
said
thing.
too, with that, when you're sticking with, let's say, your vodka and tonic water, if you're staying on the same drink, I think as many of us know, things start to become dangerous when you start to mix alcohol. So your safe bet is to obviously stay on the one drink, and if you're staying on a drink that has low calories than other drinks, then as a result you're going to feel better the next day, and obviously as a result of feeling better you're going to make better decisions. So the more that you can stick to that one drink, the better you're going to feel the next day. And something that he definitely taught me, maybe I think it might have been the second Marbella trip that I was over there, was like a rule. Like he was like telling me and you, Matt, like, okay, you have to start drinking a pint of water like every like 3 or 4 drinks. And it's not something I've always 100% adhered to, but it's definitely in the back of my mind ever since that day to implement that little strategy. And as Eve talked about, like obviously drinking a lot of water with vodka and water and that, it honestly does have such a massive impact on how you're going to wake up the next day and what kind of state of mind you're going to be in if you can implement those little tiny strategies that are still allow you to have a good time, but also they are going to make you feel that little bit better the next day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's that saying?
That's what I was-
Mixed liquor, never sicker. Is that the saying?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
actually
and I
like
definitely think
mixing liquor, which is the problem. I like going different drinks, like, but I try not.
yeah, I definitely think as well, like obviously having cocktails or having, a nice glass of wine or things like that now and again is good. But like what I'll do is like if I do want to have a cocktail or something on night out, I'll have that and then I'll switch to the vodka and soda and stick to that for the night. I'll try to do that most of the time and it really does make a difference. But yeah, I find if I drink wine for me is just like the worst hangover ever. Like even just a couple of glasses and just I just feel awful after. I think it just doesn't agree with me at all.
Yeah. That's actually one of the points I want to go on to. But Tommy, you said about the drinking water. So that's what I actually have a list of little hacks that little, like you said, little strategies and hacks that I'm going to go through at the end. And there's also Eve has her what would we call it, like science-based hangover cure, which she'll go through the list at the end because we won't give it away now. Yes, first we have the choice of alcohol. The next thing that I think is really important is before you go drinking that day, and something that I see a lot that people make the mistake of. I'm going to say females do it more often is like not eating the day before going out, and then they get absolutely plastered, and then like you said, Tommy, then the next day is absolute write off. And it's something you want to definitely avoid. One, because it makes you sick as hell. But two is like, obviously, when you get that drunk, you can make stupid decisions or say the stupid things to people that you shouldn't have. And then you wake up the next day either trying to remember it or trying to not remember what you said. But is that something you guys see, like, I suppose, before going out with when it comes to food?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely will always,
No,
I'll always kind of make sure that I eat now before going out. But like, definitely, I would have been someone in the past that would have, like, you know, maybe trying not to eat something before going out, or, you know, just trying to save calories for a night out or something like that. But it really never ends well, and you're just going to feel so much worse. And I see a lot, like you were saying there, with women especially. I do see a lot of girls that, you know, if they're going on a night out, they'll try and eat nothing all day and just try and, you know, keep as many calories aside for alcohol that night. And again, like, by not having food, you're not lying in your stomach. That alcohol's going to hit you a lot harder, and you're going to feel 10 times worse the next day. And not only hangover wise, but because you haven't eaten anything that day, the next day, then those cravings and hunger are just going to hit you, and you're not going to be able to satisfy your hunger. And that's when you're a lot more likely to end up overeating. So I think for a lot of women, they'll try to eat less, maybe to save calories for drink, but that will always backfire on them because they're probably going to eat way more in the following couple of days then.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with all of that. I was definitely somebody who was guilty of not eating as much on before night out, but we also grew up with the eating is cheating. You know, that was such a huge thing growing up. That, you know, if you were eating, then you were cheating on the how drunk you could get, essentially. You know, because you were, I think, taking away from filling room for the alcohol not to take an effect on you, kind of thing, which is fucked up. But I also think definitely eating before you go out, and then trying to stay as hydrated throughout the day before I go out, because I feel like I tend to always like forget to drink water on it before a night out, and I can feel the effect on myself as soon as I start drinking. When I don't have that water, I feel like my head just gets dehydrated a lot quicker. So that would be another thing. Make sure you're hydrating before your night out.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's good that I think we've touched on probably the two most important factors to be able to help minimize the effects of alcohol is water and food, nutrition. I was laughing, Roisin, when you said that, because that actually reminded me about, that was definitely a thing, like, it was almost like an ego thing when you were younger, you know, oh, I didn't eat. Definitely, I don't, like, it's definitely one of the best things that you can do is have like a solid nutritional meal before you go out and eat, because like you said, if you can essentially like just visualize, you know, if you have no food in your stomach is essentially running on empty, and what you're actually filling it up with is alcohol, which is not good for you. And I have been pretty good at that over the last couple of years, where, you know, I've always made sure that I have given myself time to essentially fill myself up. I can share like a recent experience where it was just the day kind of got away from me, and ended up not really eating that much food. And yeah, essentially that's what happened to me. Was my stomach was empty, and I was just like violently ill the next day. And like violently ill. It was one of the worst hangers I've had there back in September. Like, although that was like one of the worst days I've had in like such a long time, it was also a strong reminder to me about how important it is to have food the day that you are actually going drinking, because as experience shapes who we are in our lives, and that it was a little, the one positive I can take out of that is that I know for future times when I go drinking that I will not go drinking on an empty stomach again because of how I felt that day. And it's just important to look after yourself if you are going drinking, because you do not want to feel like that the next day. Your, as he said, your cravings they're so much more heightened to want to eat that junk food because you feel so bad. And I essentially felt very, very bad.
I still remember you sending that voice note to me on like Monday afterward as well. It's like I could hear it in your voice. It was like a shock. It's like you actually shocked at how sick you were. But with that, so a strategy we will use or tell people about sometimes is before drinking, like creating a calorie sink, which is saving some of your calories for the calories that you're going to consume from alcohol. But this is where extremism, people go nuts with that and take it and go like, okay, I don't eat for 2 days beforehand. No, that's not what you want to do. You want to, like, you can save calories, but I always look at it this way. You still want to get in as much protein as you possibly can and as much nutrients. So when nutrients, easy way to look at it is fruits and vegetables throughout the day. You can still have good quality, high volume, nutritious meals throughout the whole day before you go drinking, while still saving calories for yourself. And that's kind of what I do personally myself. That's what I'll always advise people to do. And another strategy that a lot of people use, and I honestly, personally, it's like, it makes sense, but I don't personally like doing it or using it with clients, is people will compensate calories during the week for the weekend. So they're like, I'm going out on the weekend, so I'm gonna not eat 200 or 300 calories during the week. I'll explain why I don't like this strategy. It's because of extremism. People take that to the extreme. They basically eat fuck all week to compensate for going out and getting absolutely smashed then. Which, when you look at it, you're taking away all this energy from yourself throughout the week. Calories is energy, which could have been used as good quality food, and you're giving it to poison, which is alcohol. So you come around on Monday, yes, no wonder you feel like shit, because you're half poison and fuck all good nutrients. So that's one reason why I don't like compensating, and because you don't need to either. You can just be smarter with your alcohol choices, your food the day of it, and it will work out better for you in the long term. And the next point on compensating, which I think really helps with people's going out at the weekend, is actually going into the weekend feeling better. If you look at it like an energy battery, if your battery is higher going into Friday or Saturday, you're going to make better decisions when you're put in those environments and situations where it's more tempting. There's always more chances to consume alcohol, consume bad crap food, whatever it is. So if you have a better energy battery, you're going to make better decisions, which is then going to compound. And usually what will happen is you'll actually recover from the night out a lot better as well. So that's something I think that's really important, because I see a lot of people doing it is you're under eating all week, you get to the weekend, you're tired, you're fatigued, you're not in a good position to make the best choices, and then you get to that night out, and that's where usually after like one drink you're like, who cares? YOLO, it's we'll deal with this in like 4 days time. And that doesn't end well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think go on, Ro.
I was saying 100%. I agree with all of that, and I think it is when you, even if you do that approach, because I used to do something similar to that, but like you go into your week then without that energy, so you're not even performing well throughout that week in your workouts or anything. So you're essentially not really making much progress at all, and then it's just this loop of going nowhere essentially, and then not having the energy to even like enjoy it. You're constantly on like a low buzz throughout your whole week, and then for this little high at the weekend to then make you feel even worse going into the next week.
And it is, Cooney, like you said, your perception of what you think you're doing is right. So people might believe that I'll eat less during the week, so it will allow me to go out and drink alcohol at the weekend, when in actual reality, what is that decision doing to you? What's it doing to your body? So if you're eating under your calories because you think you're going to make up for it at the weekend, well, that's going to affect your sleep during the week. It's going to affect your mood. It's going to affect your digestive system. It's going to affect your hormonal system. And more than likely, you're going into that Saturday, as you said, your battery low, which what's going to happen? Your immune system is more than likely not operating at a level where it should be. So then you're going out drinking, as you said, it's poison. When you say that word, it's like, why do we do it? But you are going out drinking alcohol, and then more than likely, as a result of that, because you've been literally running on empty, the effects of your decisions of what you've done all week, and not just that decision to go and drink alcohol that night, is going to affect you more than likely like a couple of days later, where you're more than likely going to end up feeling sick. It's funny, like, when you all talk about compounding decisions and how good decisions compound into huge results in that, and it's always those little, let's say, negative decisions that we make, how they can compound over time, and you may not see them for like days, weeks, or even months, but they're going to come back and bite you at some stage in your life. So.
And I think even there, what you were saying about getting sick is that I think a lot of people don't even put that together. Like when they come down with something, when they end up getting sick, they don't, look back and be like, oh, it's because I wasn't eating right and this and this. They're like, it's the season, or I just caught something. And they don't realize that it's from a weak immune system. I think a lot of people struggle to even like marry those two together, that, if they actually if they were eating better and all of this, they'd probably have a stronger immune system that wouldn't get as sick as often as they do.
Yeah, and I definitely think as well, like, if you're somebody who gets run down very often and, you're out most weekends or you drink quite often, that's definitely having an impact on your immune function. And, that's why you're getting run down more often, because that alcohol is having the negative effects and taking you longer then to recover.
Yeah. And I think I said this in the last episode about the reasons behind drinking as well. Like you said, Rose, like if you're also drinking as a response to stress, as in like, you get to the weekend, you're like, oh, fuck me, give me a glass of wine. Because I'm stressed out. When you're stressed, your immune system is already impaired. And now you're like putting alcohol on top of that to try and deal with the stress, which like will numb it or whatever. And then that affects your sleep, affects your immune system, everything. It just compounds, like Tommy said, that decision. It's kind of like trying to it's like using a short-term solution to fix a long-term problem. So it's like the alcohol fixes the stress in that half an hour, but actually compounds the problem long-term, because now you can't even recover. Yeah, and then you get sick and run down, and then this can become a cycle of, like you said, you have people getting sick. A lot of people might get sick every 4 to 6 weeks across a year, which is like, that's kind of a cyclical thing. They recover from it, they accumulate some stress and fatigue over a couple of weeks, then get sick again because they can't recover from it, So it becomes this roundabout that they're just always on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, looping back actually with this. So Eve, you might want to give this, because you were saying about the example of a meal out, how many calories an average meal out is. Something that people don't realize, especially as well, with like, is the difference between just having a few drinks and making like good decisions with your alcohol versus going for drinks, the food maybe takeaway after it, the food the next day, how much it can actually add up, and you wouldn't realize across a weekend how many calories you could consume. Steve,
Yeah,
can you
yeah,
give
I
an
think
example with numbers?
yeah, I think definitely, especially if you're someone like in a fat loss phase, like I know we've talked about, but you can obviously have alcohol, you can have meals out and still make progress, but a lot of the time people don't actually realize how much of an impact one meal out or one night out can actually have, and especially when it comes to calories. And I think I actually saw something recently where the average meal out is 1,200 calories. So I mean, if you're going out, if you're having a main course, that's around 1,200 calories. If you're having a starter, if you're having a dessert, and you're having a couple of drinks, I mean, you could easily clock up 3,000 to 4,000 calories there on one meal and drinks. And especially if you're a female, and you're in a fat loss phase, that's pretty much wiped out your weekly deficit and probably even put you in a surplus for the week. So I think people don't understand that, that one meal out or that one night out can actually have such a big impact. But like if you do, you can still obviously have these nights out, have meals out, but when you are dieting, you want to make sure that you are making more informed choices and that you have like a proper plan around it.
Yeah. For example, so if you went out and you planned ahead and you said, okay, I'm going to have like 6 drinks tonight, so 6 gin and slimline is the choice. So that's like 420 calories. And then you planned it into your, maybe you saved a little bit of calories for it. You had your planned your food for that day and the next day, 420 calories versus the other side. So you go for a meal out, 1,200 plus the starter, whatever is like 2,000. Couple of drinks, like you said, 3 to 4,000. Then the next day you feel like crap, and you're like, I'm getting a takeaway instead.
Mm-hmm.
You could consume another 2,500 there probably pretty easily. Also, if you take away that you just lie on the couch all day and you don't actually move your body, you'll probably burn less than 1,000 calories. Like that's an easy 7,000 calories across your weekend. And for a lot of people, I'm not going nuts there. That's just going out Saturday night for some food and a couple of drinks, and then getting to Monday. And then that's like, Jen, it's not that you can't do that ever, but if you're doing that every weekend, it's pretty much impossible to make progress, especially if you're trying to drop body fat.
And something I like touch on there too is because like obviously we don't want to like scare people and like talking about alcohol is bad and like calories are this and they're that, and if you're having a meal out, yes, this is the reality of it. But within that reality, as Eve mentioned, you still have a choice. You can still make smart decisions and also have a good time and enjoy yourself. I think something that I like love seeing on a Monday or on our Monday accountability posts or on the wins of the weekend is like when some of the clients, message in saying, I went out this weekend for the first time, stuck to my plan, still had a great time. And you can feel the energy literally by just looking at that comment. I can actually feel that person sharing how actually good they felt about adhering to the decisions that they wanted to make and still were able to have a good time and enjoy themselves. So it's important to say, even though it might sound scary, talking about these things, but you still have control over how you want to feel within that. And control is a big thing. Often, we always give into our impulses and that when it comes to alcohol. And you already touched on stress. And if we're stressed, we fall back into old habits. So it's just being mindful of the decisions that you're making and how they're impacting how you're going to feel, and also what impact they're going to have on your goals going forward.
Yeah, I think that's huge as well. I think your mind, that's why mindset work and having a good mindset around these things is so important, because especially for females, I think when they're dieting and they're going out at the weekend, they almost go out already feeling guilty because they don't trust themselves and they feel like they're already going to fuck up, and they go out and just over like really looking at like the food on the plate or like counting the calories as the night goes on or looking at their drinks, and they're just so much in the calories and thinking that they're going to fuck up that they're not actually, you're not actually enjoying the people you're with and the environment you're in, and actually take. And I think that's why it's so important to go have a strong mindset around this and know and trust yourself. Trust that you're allowed to go out, you're allowed to make decisions, you can say no to things, and have fun and take that little foot off the gas for a little bit, but know that you can pull yourself back. I think it's going into the night not already thinking you're going to fuck up, because then you end up going, oh fuck this, like Matt was saying, and then just go completely off the rails kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think the key words, like you said there, Ro, and Tommy, you said control. It's like understand that you actually have control over this, because a lot of people, again, when you mention alcohol, meal out, their mind completely goes like, it's like on and off. It's like that switch. It's like, yeah, fucked. Versus going, oh yes, I have this coming up. This is what I'm going to do. I have control over the decisions, and I'm able to enjoy the occasion and the people, even being able to drink mindfully. And I like to use this because, like what Tommy said, I always like to use those examples, like to not scare people, but it's just to give people the reality of what actually is very easily to happen. But it doesn't mean that you also always have to be really mindful with your drink and that you can never go out and let loose. Like I like to use this tiered approach, which basically has 3 tiers. The top tier is Betty YOLO. That's like you're on your hen, your stag, a wedding, whatever it is. You're like, who cares? I'm going out and enjoying myself. That's your top tier. Your middle tier is your normal kind of night out. where you're like, right, go meeting friends for drinks or whatever it is. Your bottom tier then is just a couple of drinks, more control, like 1 or 2 drinks or something like that. So in those 3 tiers, what you can do is like, the problem is if you're on a hen or a stag if your weekend is like that every week, that's
You're
a
fucked.
problem. You know, you're just hopping on random stags
Welcome
and
to
hens
your
just so you
30s.
can go get.
You're having a
Wedding
good time.
crashers.
So if you're in that one all the time, that's an issue. But if you can look at your schedule and you go, okay, like that happens the odd time, but it's like then these other 2 tiers can be used for your normal night out when it's like, okay, I know I'm not going YOLO. That like those ones, it's like draw a line in the sand, do whatever you want. And funny enough, when I do this with clients, they'll always come back and they nearly make better decisions compared to if I said to them like, oh, you're going to stag now, try to control your calories and try to make sure you do all these strategies. Sometimes like you don't want to do that in a stag, you know what I mean? When the guy's tied up or dressed up or that, you're not going to do those things. So it's like, look, just enjoy it.
What type of
Take it
stags are
that you're
you
going to
on?
be hungover. I just see him on
What
TV.
men get
But
tied up?
you know that those things happen at stags, don't they?
What was
But
the last stag he was at,
that's
Eve?
I'm not allowed actually on any stags anymore. Nobody invites me. But yeah, so that's like you can take the hit on that. And then it's like on the other ones, then if you can control it, and that's where like when you plan ahead, you can look and go, okay, like if you can see what you have coming up, and you can then it also allows you to make better decisions, and that's why I like that tiered approach because it's like, yes, that top tier it only happens the odd time. The middle one again is a little bit more frequent. Then the bottom one might be a weekly thing where you have 1 or 2 drinks with friends or something like that. So it's like it's breaking that down so then you can actually understand that it doesn't have to be on or off, and it can be worked in to your life over a longer period of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a roundabout way of explaining it, but that's an approach I love, is like that tiered approach.
I really like that. I feel like I can't go into that top tier too often, too much now in my life at the stage I'm at.
Your
Nobody
20s,
get
I think
married.
that was okay, but that's why, yeah, like when you look, yeah, in your 30s now, it's like trying to stay away from that. It's like, how many can people stop getting married? So that kind of leads into the next point. No, I'll actually come back. I wanted to go to another point, which is actually about knowing your limit. And you mentioned this, Tommy, is like those decisions. And I think that's where planning ahead and kind of understanding where that limit is, because I think we all have it where it's like, I was only talking to Neil about this, where it's like, that extra drink. It's like you have one more, and that's a tipping point. And it's like, we're in trouble now. And it's actually funny. Dr. Mike Israel had it in a video. He had a very scientific kind of scale of alcohol, and he was like, first phase is feeling it after a drink. Then the second one is tipsy. Third one is what he called in the mix. So this is when you're having fun. He was like, this is where the maximum fun is. And the next one is drunk. And he's like, this is where you want to get to, is this in the mix. You want to stay there. But after that is drunk. And then you have sloppy, which is the falling around the place. And then he put it as a college night, so university night, where you're completely messed up. And then the last one is hospital, where you're like carried out on a stretcher. So that's like the levels of drunkenness. And that's where you want to get to, is that in the mix, which I think we all agree on. It's like there's a certain
That's
point
sweet
where it's
spot.
just like if you could stay at that all night. I think Irish people are terrible at staying at that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely think I've definitely gotten way better at that in the last like probably 2 or 3 years where, I'm on a night out and I'm like, no, I'm happy out now. Someone's getting me a drink and I'm like, get me a sparkling water. And I've done that like a few times now and I'm like, I actually have so much more fun on the night because you even wake up a lot fresher as well the next day. And I think that's like a big problem with drinking in Ireland is getting into rounds. So like I just try and avoid rounds because like everyone drinks at a different speed and I find when you're in a round, everyone will drink faster. So like they just clock up so fast and so I just say straight up, I'm like, no, I'm not going in a round. Leave me out of this one.
When you're in a round, you end up drinking as fast as the fastest person who can drink, because then they'll buy the next round. And it's like
Yeah.
it's that waterfall or something game. You end up, it's just not a good time. I
Or
remember being in
they
rounds
buy
where
the next
I
round
used
when
to-
you're like halfway through a drink instead of finished.
I remember younger, I used to drink large bottles of cider and I'd be in rounds, and it takes a lot longer to drink a large bottle of cider than it does a pint, and there'd just be bottles coming, and it's not a great time. It was a great time, but back
Yeah.
then.
I think, like, it's interesting, like, different people are going to perceive this type of information, that we're sharing it here. And certain people are going to relate to it, some people are going to want it, and some people aren't going to want it at all. Like, if I think back to my younger self, I went out, there was never a thing as like control or stopping or knowing when was enough or knowing what was, even though I knew alcohol wasn't good for me, but like I still ended up just drinking obscene amount of alcohol. Whereas now, for me, like, I'm going to say this word, I'm more mature. I have that little bit more emotional intelligence. Yes, mature.
Very mindful.
Yeah, but like with that, I think you just become more understanding of like what do you want in life, and like what do I want out of alcohol. And I know, as we kind of like spoke about before, but it's like I know what's good for me, and I don't want to get to that stage where you talked about, Cooney, like it actually sounded really good, even though it's funny going through those stages. Like in that mix, I could feel that. Like I know that stage. That feels amazing to me, where I'm like, I'm happy, I'm on the dance floor with my friends, I'm having a good time, but I'm still very aware of what's going on. But I'm also very aware of, I think this could go up a couple of levels now, to make a few bad decisions, And before, like, I would never even thought that. The second someone handed me a shot, it was gone. Like, whereas now I will like happily say no to people. And I think a strategy for people to use with that coming up to Christmas, and that is like, am I making this decision based off what another person wants, or am I making it off what I want? And when it comes to like shots and things like that, for me, it has to be based off my decision, where I'm like, I don't want that, because I know the result of what that does to me. Trying to remain in that state. Yeah, it can be challenging. Of course, it can, because sometimes we do just want to have the shot and like drink it and not worry about the consequences. But there is consequences, and I know that from certain drinks that I drink right now, that just will literally take me to that college stage. And what's it? I'm not saying that I'm never going to get there again in my life. Of course, there's going to be nights where that's going to happen, but they just happen less and less now. I feel better for that because of that. So yeah, happily that I have matured in some ways, but there's still more maturity to come, I'm sure.
And it kind of reminded me there, the two different examples, because you kind of said about this stage of your life. And even for me, I think it was like 2 years ago now where I started with Kieran, who was like mindset coaching, and that's something he did to me, was actually challenge my drinking. And I was like very taken back by it at first. I was kind of like, what are you talking about? At first, I was like, I don't drink much. And then in my head, I'm like, if you only knew what I used to drink when I was young, But like, he kind of did explain it to me. He was like, you're at a stage of your life right now where like alcohol is actually no benefit to you with what you want to do. And he's like, he was saying when you're 50 or 60, whatever, it may be a different stage of your life where it's actually more complementary to it, having drinking more often. And it kind of got me. It's one of those things, when at first it's like I was resistant to. I'm like, shut up, I don't have there's no issue here. And then the more I thought about it, and those things that kind of stick in your mind for a while after it, I was like, yeah, maybe there's something a bit to this here, And same with a friend of mine, Brian, did a year off alcohol, and the way he explained it was like he didn't drink much at all, but like maybe once a month. But every time he drank, he lost 3 days. So it's like the day you go drinking and 2 days after. And then if you look at that over a year, that's 30 days. It's actually more, it's 36. So imagine telling someone that's really busy and going at the start of the year, I can give you 1 month extra in the year. What could you do with that? Would you like that? Be like, yes, that's like magic. Literally, that's only once a month going out. So I'm a logical person. When I look at that stuff, I'm like, well, that's a lot, like, So I'm like, it is one of those situations where it's not that I don't want to drink it, like you said, Tommy. It's not like I just it's like it's weighing up, is it worth it for me, and making that decision actively in each time I go out. And funny enough, like I feel like I don't drink much, but last time we recorded a podcast, I was going to a wedding the day after, and this time I'm going to Neil's birthday tomorrow, so I'm going drinking both times, and I'm like, I don't drink much, but I seem to be drinking the next day after recording these every time.
I think that though the same, it's like you were saying there, it's like it ebbs and flows throughout your life. Like when you're younger, especially being Irish, drinking is it's part of our culture. Like, and I think it's hard to even admit the effects it has on you because we associated drinking with fun. Drinking was your night out. It's the weekend. It's when you're allowed let loose, and it's hard to question that moment of fun and be like, there's no issue there. Like that's not affecting me because that's the one time of the week that I actually get to let loose and relax. But then I think as you grow older, like you were saying there, Matt, like I realized that when I was drinking at the weekend, even though I was going out for a couple of drinks, but there was nothing really to it, and it was just for the sake of going out. And I was like, I'm not even having the fun here. And it's having a knock-on effect on my week, on my productivity and where I want to go. And then that's when I made the decision. I was like, okay, I actually just want to cut back on this and see what it's like without alcohol for a while. And when I did the 100 days off alcohol, I was like, I couldn't get over just the mental clarity and the not being like that self-doubt in my head got so much louder the couple of days after drinking. And then that's when I made just cutting back on it and seeing it as a different thing, enjoying it with the people that you're with rather than making it like this everyday thing, every week kind of thing.
That's what I do as well with, like you were saying, ebbs and flows of drinking during your life. I like to do that during the year as well. And that's what, like, I kind of call it like periodization of drinking, which is like periodization is a fancy word for breaking it up into blocks. So that's why, like, even doing the 100 days off alcohol this year kind of combined that with a fat loss phase because I knew it's like they kind of go hand in hand. It works better. And then it's like when I'm just aiming to maintain, I'll have more drinking will be going on, more social occasions. So again, for the summer, for example, I'm more in maintenance, and then I know there's a lot more on. And then, like, even when I'm trying to build muscle, I'll try and moderate my drinking. I won't more so moderate the heavy ones, just because again, I know if I'm actually trying to build muscle, train hard, can't drink heavy and do that. So it's like only, yes, like through our lives as well, we'll kind of go through these ebbs and flows. But I like to go through nearly seasons throughout the year as well, which I find works well because it allows you to kind of focus on different things. And like you were saying, Ro, with like that mental clarity, and even for myself, I'm actually looking forward to like my next block of like limiting drinking and really like locking in, focusing on myself personally and my own like health and training, and obviously the business side of things. So, and I think in that way, the way I do it, at least for me personally, it gives me enough of everything that I don't feel like I'm missing out, like I'm never drinking again type of thing. Then I don't feel like I'm overdoing it. Or if I do have a period of time with lots of social events like December, like now I know there's going to be more drinking, but I already know in January I probably won't even drink because I'm locking it, So it creates that kind of, I don't like the word balancing, but the balancing act across the year for me, which I enjoy. It gives me enough of everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's all personal preference. Got to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah.
Trial and error.
Yeah, too much.
Thought that was really interesting, Cooley, about what Brian told you about losing 3 days and then ending up being like 36 days in a year. You could think, you could have like 36 days in a year where you could be more productive, but not necessarily doesn't have to be that. Like those 36 days could be days where you actually just take a break from work, where you go and do something that's actually going to make you feel better. I know like people might hear that, you're like, oh, you've 36 days more to do work. Not necessarily, you don't have to like associate with those 36 days of work. They could be like, let's say like, as I said, 36 days where you're going doing something for yourself that's actually going to help with your productivity rather than taking away from it. I think that's an important thing to mention to people, was that, and I think that'll really hit home with people if they kind of look at their year when you're talking about blocks and that, how often do they drink, and then kind of adding up that total of being like, okay, well, how much time is this taking away from my life? Whether it's could be time spent with my kids, could be time getting back involved in sport, could be anything at all. So I think that one will definitely relate to a lot of people. So it will definitely actually Sparked something in me when you said it, so it was definitely very interesting. So it was.
Yeah. And I think even just doing more non-drinking related activities with people is also great. And it's like something I think we always just, even for us actually with our kind of Christmas party now, like, we're going to a spa for the day. Whereas like years ago it would have been like go to Phillies or go to a pub for the day. And it's like you're just that in general, it's something we probably wouldn't have done that years ago. Whereas like now it's like, oh yeah, it's actually great to have a day of recovery, going to just this random kind of place together to just spend time more so than just going out drinking. And I think it's I think it's becoming a little bit more popular. I do see a lot more people like even on their Sundays, go for coffees or going for like
Wholesome weekend.
yes, whatever the cool kids call it these days.
I'm going making Christmas cookies tomorrow with a group here.
With whiskey?
No, maybe mulled wine, but it's not on the cards.
So I think to finish, I want to go through a few different little hacks, and Eve needs to share the hangover cure. So we've actually gone through a few of them. So just to summarize the ones, so drinking water in between drinks is definitely a really good one. Trying not to go in rounds, because again, you have to drink at your own pace. And 0% alcohol is one that I have here, and something from the 100 days off alcohol that I actually realized is really beneficial, especially for a lot of people, even in social situations. It's actually just having a drink, not like alcohol. It's just having something there. So it's something I did a couple of times, and I would definitely recommend it. I enjoyed it just as much. The other one is to stop drinking before bed. So try to drink early. It's actually something I actually try to do, is like drink earlier in the day, just because
For breakfast.
you yeah. What?
For
I
breakfast.
start my day with what's it?
Espresso martini, morning coffee.
Yeah. But I knew you could take that the wrong way. But basically, you get to go to bed on time, because for me, sleep is like key. And if you stop drinking a couple hours before, and also if you start to have water, like drink 2 pints of water before going to bed, doesn't affect your sleep as much. You're better, you're more recovered. For me as well, it's like if I'm out to like 3 a.m., it's even without alcohol, I'm gonna feel like I'm hungover. So that's that one. And probably the mindset. I think, Ro, you touched on it. Is like a lot of us have that, like, oh, it's the weekend. I had effort. So if you just go into it with a better mindset. And Eve, you want to share your hangover cure?
Okay,
People
so
would be interested to know.
are you talking about like supplements?
Yes, everything.
Okay, I definitely think electrolytes are unbelievable for preventing a hangover and reducing the effects of it. So like I'll take an electrolyte obviously that day, but what I'll also do then as well is I'll leave the packet of electrolytes on my pillow. So if I get home from the night out, there's electrolytes on my pillow, there's a glass of water beside the bed, and I just take that and makes such a difference. And obviously taking magnesium definitely helps, and vitamins, and you can take these both before and after. And I've also heard that activated charcoal can be really good for a hangover as well and reducing the effects of it. I've never tried it. I haven't just tried it myself, but I've heard if you take activated charcoal before drinking, it can help absorb some of the toxins from the alcohol, so it can minimize the effects of alcohol. I've heard, yeah, because I knew a girl that used to get really, really bad hangovers, and she'd said that she used to do that and it worked really well for her. But
So it's like
yeah, I think that's
electrolytes and electrolytes or a diorite, same kind of
yeah,
thing. Vitamin C,
vitamin C
magnesium, and
and water
activated charcoal if you want.
if you want a bonus one.
Yeah, definitely does work.
And Eve, I can't believe you forgot about it, but something to help the next day. Cold dip.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, that's the best. Cold water solves
Preferably
everything.
as soon as you wake up,
Yeah.
some cold water.
Yeah.
I was like a master at doing that a few years ago. So yeah, I think that's everything gone through today. A lot, I think, to take on board for people. But I think hopefully there's a lot of kind of valuable points, and even for a lot of people to take away is like some little strategies, just little things that will make a big difference over time. And then two is probably the thought process for yourself behind alcohol, behind socializing. So that's like short term little strategies and hacks to use. Longer term, maybe think a bit more about your relationship with alcohol. And any Tommy Roll, any final thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, Yeah, I think that's important, your relationship with alcohol, and having like being mindful around it, like having a good energy going into why you're drinking and the people you're with and what you want to get out of it, rather than, I think, especially for me growing up, I was going in with like almost this negative energy or stress and anxiety and hoping that alcohol would cover that up rather than just kind of embracing it and enjoying the event that you're in. So I think just being a little bit mindful around the alcohol and what you kind of the outcome you want from it.
Yeah, and just with this and it being Christmas too, enjoy yourself. Don't be hard or critical on yourself, or don't try not to overthink alcohol in terms of the negative consequences it's going to have on you. We both mentioned that word, relationship. Everyone can have a good relationship with alcohol, so they can, if they choose to put the strategies, some of them that we mentioned today, in place with that. If you put those strategies in place, you can have a good relationship with alcohol and you can still enjoy yourself, you can still have a good time, and you'll feel much better for it, so you will.
Yeah. And just figuring out what works for you, I think, is also a good way, because again, we've said a lot of stuff. The four of us here kind of don't use them all either. We all approach it differently, so it's kind of finding what is best for you. It's just knowing the more knowledge and tools you can have in your toolbox, the better you're equipped to experiment, see what works, what doesn't.
And if someone wants to
Yes,
try out Eve's tool as well of having espresso martinis in the morning, I'd love to know how that goes.
and if they are, I'll also join in if you need a person to do it with. So you just drop me a message.
Actually, have you seen that hack in the airport? I want to do flying home because we're going straight onto alcohol now. But you get a mini Bailey's and a mini Kahlua, and you get a coffee in the airport, and you add it to them, and you have like a warm espresso martini as your airport drink.
Nice.
And random point as well. For some reason, every time people have said mindful in this podcast, I always think of that very demure thing.
Yeah.
Every time there's a random question, which is an interesting one. I should actually change the question to like, basically the question is, what animal do you think best reflects your personality? Should say like, what animal do you think best reflects your personality when you're drunk?
Oh, God. What animal best?
I'm a panda.
For sure.
It's easy for you.
Panda when drunk, panda when sober.
What animal
I don't
am
know.
I?
I'm an old English sheepdog when I have my.
I'd like to be that.
Are we answering when we're drunk, or are we answering when we're sober?
No, sober. We'll go sober.
Yeah.
Tanya, I feel like you're
I don't know. I
slow.
remember I got asked this like animal thing before. It was like all these questions. I can't remember the questions, but I remember what came up for me was like
Your spirit
it was a
animal.
lion actually, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm gonna go with the lion. And it wasn't
Yeah,
because
nice.
I've got ginger hair.
I was thinking of like I was trying to think of an animal. What's like a calm, chilled out type of animal, but
He's like
not for me. No, for you, Tommy.
a sloth. You know, like the chilled out sloths.
Eve, that actually kind of came up for me when the question was asked, and I was kind of like, what's kind of like.
But they're like, you're also not like that at all, because they're also like real like lazy and like,
Yeah.
you know, you're like the chilled part of a sloth, but
I'll take
then
that.
like, I don't know,
Little meerkat.
a meerkat,
Meerkat.com.
I don't know what I am still, because my
a seal.
seal actually, yes, that is the one for me. That's an inside joke, because I'm actually not a seal. Even though I've been called that quite a few times randomly. That's as random as me being called a seal for the last few years is actually Willie Bulger's fault, and it's as random as the questions that we ask. That's what it is now. So, guys, hopefully you got some value from today, and yeah, we will see you in the next one. There's not too many now left this year.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you found value in today's show, please take a moment to leave us a review and share it with someone who could benefit. Every single review or share helps us grow the show and will allow us to keep bringing you more great content. Stay tuned for weekly episodes where we'll be sharing more tips and insights to help you take your health, fitness, and mindset to the next level. Thanks again for joining us, and remember, consistency beats perfection. See you in the next episode.